Okay, it's 2:05 p.m. on Monday, February 8th, 2021. My name is Don Gosney, and I welcome everyone to the meeting of the West Contra Costa Unified School District Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. Will you all join me in saluting the flag of our nation? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. All members of the public are welcome to speak on any issue today that is on the agenda. Please use the tool to raise your hand and I will call on you at the appropriate time. We also offer an opportunity under public forum to speak on any issue under the control of the CBOC that is not on the agenda. We request public comments be limited to no more than 3 minutes. Under public comment, with limited exceptions, the CBOC is not allowed to reply to comments or questions. Because this is an online meeting, I ask that if anyone other than staff wants to speak, they use the raise your hand feature and wait to be called on. Please do not talk over each other. Remember to unmute yourself when you want to speak and then mute yourself when you're done. Just a reminder to please silence all phones not being used for this meeting. This meeting is being recorded, so don't forget to smile so everyone can see how happy you are to be here. And just for the record, we've had a difficulty with the internet, so this meeting is being conducted over the phone. We appreciate all the efforts being made so that we can actually host this meeting, but if we run into any problems, all bets are off. Okay. Secretary Anderson, can you do a roll call, please?
All right, Maisa Cole. Absent. Sally DeWitt.
I'm here.
Guadalupe Inalana.
I'm here.
Don Gosney.
I'm here.
Lorraine Humes.
Here.
Anton Younger.
Here.
And obviously John Anderson. So we have 6 of the 5 members present.
6 out of the 7?
6 of the 7, I'm sorry.
All right. Okay, that is good. So we have a quorum. All right. We'll go on to item D, approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the agenda as presented? If not, then we'll just go ahead as presented. Okay, so be it. Does anybody, obviously we don't have any slips to fill out, but does anybody have any public comments for items not on the agenda? If you can raise your hand.
Don,
What?
Don,
Lorraine,
I just wondered if you could introduce the guests,
the guest?
the non-members of the committee.
Certainly. If you're not a member of the committee and you're signed on, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
I'm Tom Panis. I put in an application to serve on the CBOC.
Thank you. Anybody else care to?
I'm Michael Ash. I'm a partner with Christy White, Inc. Here to present and answer some questions on the draft of the financial audit report.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, everyone. I'm Margarita Romo. I'm the lead internal auditor.
Thank you, Margarita. Anybody else care to introduce themselves?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jamila Smith Folds. I'm a newly elected school board trustee, and I was elected out of Area 1. Glad to be here.
Good.
You can only use that newly elected thing for a short period of time. You're a full-blown member yet, with all the privileges and responsibilities. So,
Thank you, Mr. Gosney.
I mean, you do something wrong, you can't say, "Hey, I'm newly elected." Doesn't work anymore. Yeah, as soon as you put your hand down after swearing you to take that oath, you're in. Okay, anybody else?
I'm Consuelo Lara. I'm guest.
Thank you.
Very good.
Anybody else?
I'm Madeline Cronenberg, and I'm a guest.
We welcome guests.
Thank you.
And just as a reminder that we run our meetings a little bit more loosely than school board meetings. Everybody sits at the grown-ups table, even our guests. If they've got some comment or question that they want to ask, all I ask is that they please just raise their hand and I want to make sure that we hear what you have to say. And you just can't vote. Not that we have many votes, but we want to hear what everybody has to say. Okay. We have nobody else. Let's go ahead. Item F on the agenda. I'm sorry, we got a telephone conference call, and I apologize. I don't know who misspelled telephone on this agenda packet. Surely it couldn't have been me. Another one of my broken keyboards. But we have a telephone conference call with Christy White, Michael Ash, to discuss the draft financial audit. I'm going to turn things over to Michael Ash so he can give a presentation. First, we requested of all the CBOC members that if they had any questions, to submit them to us so that we could give them to Mr. Ash beforehand so he could come prepared. Anton Younger did come up with some questions, and they were staff responded to a couple of them. I sent those out last night so that we could follow along with those, but I'm sure one way or the other, we're going to get this squared away. So Mr. Ash, turn things over to you for a presentation.
All right, well, good afternoon. Thank you for having me here today to present a draft of the audit report. As you probably know from sitting on the committee, every Prop 39 bond has to undergo annual financial and performance audits from the first bond issuance all the way until all the money from those measures has been spent. And so I'm here today to present just on the financial piece of the audit, and everything went well. We did not have any audit findings or audit adjustments that were necessary, so that's really good. And I just really wanted to reach out and thank the district for allowing us to present to the COC. This is not common. It doesn't happen in all situations. I would say of the bond audits that I work on, I probably only actually get to speak in meetings like this to maybe 5 or 6 clients. So it is really nice to be able to do that. And I did get the list of questions on Friday, and I was just planning on going through each of them and providing the best response that I possibly can. And I'm happy to answer any follow-up or additional questions that come out of my responses. So the first thing I want to say is these are the district's financial statements themselves, and what we own are the auditor's opinions and any findings. So any changes that you have in here that you've requested, I will give you my input on them, but if they're not within the auditor's opinions, it's up to the district whether they want to make those changes or not. So I just wanted to clarify that. So question number 1 was, can the content be revised to read introduction and governing board and citizens bond oversight committee member listing? And to me, that's fine. The governing board is included in there, so why not include them as part of that header? So I would be fine with making that change number 1, as long as the district is okay with that. I guess they can respond to me later on some of these on whether they want to do them or not, and I'll just go through each of them. Number 2, would it be helpful to page number divider pages? That is not a common thing in audit reports. I went out and looked at some other firms just to make sure, but usually the divider pages are not numbered. So I would not recommend that, but if that's something that the district absolutely wants to do, then that could happen. But we usually typically don't do that on any of our reports, and from the reports I saw from other firms out there, they don't either. Number 3, can a note be added to explain why all governing board terms expire December 2020? To me, that's fine. So as long as the district sends me that note of how they want that to read, I would be totally fine with that. Number 4, can the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee members listing be as of June 30th to be consistent with the governing board? I think that's a great idea, and I would definitely be fine with that if the district sends me that listing as of June 30th, 2020. Question number 5. Now, this is within our auditor's opinion. So it's auditor's responsibility. Can the California Guide Appendix A be also referenced? If you don't know, Appendix A that's part of the state audit guide, and that's the part of the state audit guide that relates to these Proposition 39 financial and performance audits. And absolutely, yes, we can add in the California Guide Appendix A in there along with the other things that we reference. Absolutely. Number 6, auditor's responsibility. Is it fair to represent in the CBOC annual report that the auditor expressed no opinion on the effectiveness of the district's internal controls? The answer to that would be yes, that is fair to say. Our objective is to give an opinion on the financial statements. Now, because we do it under what's called government auditing standards, which is that report that's in the back, we do have to consider internal controls over financial reporting as a basis for designing the audit procedures that we do. And if we do come across anything that we determine to be a significant deficiency or a material weakness in internal controls over financial reporting, we do have to report those as audit findings, but we do not give an opinion on the effectiveness of internal controls. So my answer is yes, I think that's a very fair statement. Number 7, supplementary information, page 13 does not appear to present any management supplementary information. Should that be noted here? So what that is page 13, which is in the supplementary information, is basically just saying that there were no audit adjustments between the unaudited actuals and this audit report. That is a schedule that has to be presented for the overall district audit. The state controller requires that, and it does go into supplementary information. That is not required for a Proposition 39 bond audit. I'm guessing along the way somewhere it was requested to be put in there either by the district or by the COC. My recommendation would be, if we are going to keep it in there, which I think it's a good schedule to have, that it does stay within supplementary information, just to be consistent with how it's presented at the district report and how the state controller requires it. Number 8, I believe this is one of the ones that the district had a question, answered the question, and that was reconciling the total assets from the bond program financial status as of June 30th to the audit report. And I think the district has provided that reconciliation to everyone there.
Michael, just for so it's on the recording, I'm going to go ahead and read that response.
Okay, sounds good.
Just so it goes in the record.
Yes.
Okay, this is again from staff. Number 8, report number 13, printed on July 3rd, 2020, was a preliminary report before closing the book. The adjusted cash balance of $162,950,338.73 included the non-bond measure and liabilities. For CBOC question for asset, it's $169,046,801.19 on the report number 13, printed on July 3rd, 2020. See the report number 13, page 2, note 1. $163,211,502.22 plus $5,835,298.97 included non-bond measure. The total asset for measure D and E should be $164,957,639.10, which is $163,211,502.22 plus $5,835,298.97 less non-bond measure. After July 3rd, 2020, we had closing adjustment added of $236,949.57, which was a payroll adjustment of $69,525.23. Cash with fiscal agent adjustment minus $4,698.10. Accrued pooled earning of $100,637.10. Accrued late interest $71,485.34. And finally, the final asset is $165,194,588.67, which is $164,957,639.10 plus $236,949.57, which is equal to audit report. I hope you're all paying attention to those numbers because we're going to have a spot quiz a little bit later. Okay, that is the response on item 8. Anton, you had a comment?
Could I'd like to speak to that. Could I have a better understanding of why the non-bond measures would adjust the Fund 21 balance.
I'm guessing that since that was a staff response, that staff would be responding to this, your question right now?
Yes.
Do we have anybody from staff that would like to address that?
Yes, hi, good afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for being so nimble this afternoon as we kind of work through logistics. So the non-bond measure is typically the state funding that comes in through Fund 35 and then gets transferred into Fund 21. So it's not a bond measure, funding associated with a bond measure. It's funding that's then transferred into the bond fund that was received from the state. So like, for example, the Pinole dollars that we received from the state came through Fund 35, and then we transfer them into the bond fund, and that's how they're coded in the system. Does that best answer your question?
Why are they less then? Because they're increasing Fund 21, right? They're coming from 35 from the state, and then are transferred from 35 to 21. And that would increase Fund 21, but now we're deducting it.
Because it's a non-bond measure. So those aren't Measure D dollars, those aren't Measure E dollars, and those aren't Measure R dollars. So it's a non-bond measure. So in our accounting resources, we keep that as a separate resource. So for
Okay,
any of
I
our
understand. Thank you.
okay.
Does that satisfy you, Anton?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Ash, go ahead, please.
Okay. So number 9, and I just want to clarify 9, 10, and 11. The reason why I had staff answer these is because as part of our audit, we're giving an opinion on whether the financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects. So there is a materiality threshold. So I did not want to speak incorrectly on any of these answers, 9, 10, and 11. So that's why I had staff give the answers. So number 9 was note 2, did the bond funds loan cash to the general fund at any time during fiscal year 2020? And the response from staff was no. That concurs with what we saw. Again, I just didn't want to speak to it. And then there was like a small cash transfer that happened in the middle of the year that we didn't pick because it wasn't material. Same thing with number 10, note 5A, litigation. Were there any litigation on bond construction projects at June 30th, 2020? The staff response was no. And from what we saw through audit procedures, we would also concur with that.
So for that item, I would just like to provide a point of clarification that as stated on page 12 of the audit, there is some litigation. However, we don't believe that that will have an effect. And so I want to point to, I think the way that it's stated in the audit is absolutely correct. And so for more clarification, I would refer to page 12.
Excuse me, Melissa, your audio is kind of faint. So if you can get a little closer to the microphone. Or...
Sorry about that, everyone. So as noted on page 12 of the financial audit, and I want to read it just so that I'm being precise. Give me just one second. So note 5A on page 12 of the draft financial audit says the district is involved in various litigation arising from the normal course of business. In the opinion of management and legal counsel, the disposition of all litigation pending is not expected to have a material adverse effect on the overall financial position of the district at June 30, 2020. And that is correct. So that's kind of the full response. No is a little bit misleading. So I just wanted to share that clarification today with the group.
Can I speak to that, Don?
Absolutely.
Because that's confusing to me because the staff response said no. And now you're telling me that no is not correct. The question was, is any of the pending litigation relating to Fund 21? The staff response for no, and now you're just relying on the auditor's response that says it's no material effect. That's completely a different opinion. Is the staff response incorrect that you gave me?
Yes, the staff response is incomplete. And so we want.
Well, then you should have said that in your statement. So don't mislead us, because I have in my hand the staff response and says no. So why did you mislead us?
That's
What,
why-
what legal cases are pending against Fund 21? Can you tell us?
So what I want to do is be sure that through proper disclosure, the right information is being provided. And so in the financial reports provided that kind of summarize the year, there are some settlements that occurred last year between the district and the contractor Roblin, and between the district and the Seville Group. All of those were reported out of closed session. They're included in the financial reports and disclosures that we've provided. And so those are all related to a bond-funded project, the Nystrom project. And so we try to be as accurate as we can in our response, and no is not an accurate response, which is why I wanted to speak to that today.
But Melissa, I'm not asking for all the lawsuits that were settled. What I'm asking is June 30 of 2020, were there any open lawsuits that could materially affect, not material effect, I'm not asking whether they're material effect because the auditor's already given an opinion on that. I'm asking, are there any open lawsuits at June 30, 2020? That's the question. I'm not looking for the settlements.
Yes, there's pending litigation.
All right, are you able to tell us, you don't have to tell us now, but are you able to, is that a disclosure you can give to the CBOC subsequent to this meeting?
Yes, so I do believe, Mr. Youngher, that you've requested those records and that we've provided them, and I'm happy to provide that to the full CBOC.
No,
public
the records I
associated
request,
with the case.
that's incorrect. That's incorrect. I've not requested those records. What I requested were the records of the settled case. I wasn't even aware there was any unsettled cases. And
So-
when I got the staff report that said no, that confirmed that there were no, as of June 30. So that's fine. We don't have to discuss this. If you, are you able to give us subsequent to this meeting, a list of the open cases at June 30, 2020?
Yes, I will make sure
Fine.
to confer with Mr. Freeze and legal counsel, and we can provide the information that is available to be provided.
Thank you.
Okay, 1 second here, please. Melissa, I'm
Yes,
going to request, can you summarize what you put together in writing so that I can add it to this table so they can be included in the minutes?
yes. So you want me to summarize Mr. Youngher's request and then
No.
what's going to be provided?
No, I want you to summarize your response to his request.
Is
But
that,
pretty much what you've been
okay.
talking about the past 3 or 4 minutes.
so I will work with Mr. Freeze and legal counsel to confirm what the response to the question, which is the pending litigation as of June 30, 2020, as I understand it to be.
Okay. Yeah, right now, I don't want to, in our minutes, to have that no left in there as a response.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We totally agree. And sometimes what gets hard when you're talking about audits is here we are in February of 2021, and we're talking about a 12-month period that ended, 7 months ago. And so I apologize if anything I've said has been frustrating from that. And I'm trying to be in my current moment, but try to reflect on a fiscal year's past.
Okay. Can we set a target date of before the President's Week?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Turn it back over to you, Mr. Ash.
Okay, question number 11, note 5B, were there any expenditures not capitalized or included in construction in progress at June 30th, 2020? And this answer also came from the district, that all 2020 expenditures from the measures were capitalized or included in WIPT on the capital asset schedules.
Sorry, for those of us that are not acronym friendly, what is WIP?
Work in progress.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, number 12, note 6, can you identify in the audit report other building funds? I know the district answered the question of what the other building funds represented. Is there anything that is there anything else that the COC has a question on regarding that or would like to?
This is Anton again. I don't have any answer to that question on what the staff provided me. The last question they answered was 11.
I think that
got-
was number, did I just make that up? Oh, it was part of number 8. It was part of that big old long answer to number 8. So the other building funds, that's the remainder of Fund 21 that doesn't relate to either one of the bond measures.
Oh, that's not the question. The question is, was there any write-offs? That's the question.
Yes,
Yes, there were write-offs.
yes.
Okay, because on question 11, you answered no. Or you said there was all expenditures were capitalized or included work in progress, which means there's no write-offs. Were there write-offs?
I don't see a
Okay.
question. Hi, this is Margarita. I'm not seeing a question regarding write-offs on the list of questions.
Oh, question 11, if you either capitalize or you include a work in progress, if you expensed it during the year, that's a write-off. In the past, you've had millions of dollars of write-off. These are projects that architectural fees and other things that you start and you don't do with a project and you write it off because you can't capitalize it and it's not work in progress. That's the question.
I'm
And the
sorry,
answer I got,
I apologize. I thought we had moved on to question 12.
well, we did, but we got back to question 11 because 11, the auditor just read the district response and then I heard that's not correct.
So Anton, I can just tell you that from the capital asset listing that I saw, there were amounts shown as write-offs, but I don't have the answer as to what those are at this point.
Fine,
So-
that's fine. So the district's response is incorrect. So I would ask the district to provide us a listing of those write-offs. Can the district do that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So number 12 was related to note 6. Can you identify in the audit report other building funds? And this is where I was going back to question 8 and the district's response of the other building fund represents the piece of Fund 21 that's not related to any of the measures. It's more related to the money that's received from the state that goes into Fund 35 and then transferred to Fund 21. And my question for you guys is does that answer your question for that? Or did you have another question related to that note 6?
No, I don't think it has. I believe it relates to Measure J, so. Can the district help us here?
So what I can confirm is there were no Measure J expenditures for fiscal year 20.
I believe that's correct because the audit report only reflects revenues.
So
So-
I'm unclear on the additional information that you need.
Well, other building funds. What is it? You got $80,000 of revenue. So is that Measure J funds? If that 80,000 revenue, which I assume is interest on earnings, I'm asking, can you say a footnote that that's what it is?
So those are interest earnings. And so what I hear is that you're asking for a footnote to describe what those funds represent. And so what I'm proposing is that we work with Christy White to provide that information. Am I hearing the request appropriately?
Yes.
And how does that sound, sir?
That's fine with me.
Okay, great.
Okay. Number 13 was related to the previous question number 7, which had to do with the supplementary information section. And I think I've answered that already. Are there any other questions regarding that? It's regarding the reconciliation between the unaudited actuals and this report. Okay. And then I think 14 was the same question as number 6, which was, is it fair to represent that the auditor expressed no opinion on the effectiveness of the district's internal controls? And again, I would say yes to that.
Okay. Before we go and ask if anybody else has any other questions, I'm going to request of district staff and Mr. Ash, can you go back on this list of questions and give me a brief, B-R-I-E-F, brief, written response so that I could add it to this table for our records. Take a look at the size of the boxes. It should fit in theirs, okay? I don't need a lengthy response, but we want to make sure that in our minutes that we get it correct. Okay, can we get that from an agreement?
Yes, I can help with that for sure.
I appreciate that. Do we have any other questions from anybody else or comments?
Don, this is Margarita. I just wanted to say that I'll work with Mr. Freeze and Dr. Wold regarding some of the formatting changes and additions to the report. And when I hear from them, I'll share the decisions with Mr. Ash so that we can make those modifications to the audit report.
Okay, I like that. Okay, again, last chance. Any other questions or comments from the CBOC members, staff, people at home? Okay. Now, do you have anything else, Mr. Ash, that you wanted to add?
No, that's all I had. I just, again, thank you very much for inviting me to your meeting today. It was great to talk to you. And those were really good questions, by the way. So thank you.
We try not to disappoint. Thank you very much for stepping in and answering the questions and giving us the report. You know, a lot of people don't understand the difference between the financial audit and the performance audit. The financial audit is pretty much just numbers on a page that are all crunched together. Nothing real controversial, usually, till we open up our doors. Performance audit is a different opinion because it is a matter of opinions on people are analyzing and passing judgment on the way that the district handled the bond funds and how the board handled it, how the CBOC handled it. So it is a little bit different. But that one we'll have to wait for next month. Okay. Again, thank you again, Mr. Ash. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. Next item on our agenda is item G. Since we're talking about the audits, let's talk about the audit schedules. And once again, Anton has done me a great favor and provided all kinds of information in there. So I'll turn things over to Anton if he wants to make any kind of presentation on this.
Well, I mean, what's disappointing to me is that, you know, we worked with Ms. Romo on this schedule back and forth before the meeting. And then on Friday, in the Friday memo, I get information that's in terms of when we're having the presentation of the final, it's not consistent. So I just don't understand how we trying to work with staff. And then in the Friday memo, we get information different than the agenda that we put out on Friday on our own committee on this schedule. And speaking specifically to the March 24th date of acceptance of the reports, we'd previously got a footnote that they were talking about doing it on the 31st for a joint meeting, but we know that had not been confirmed. We know a joint meeting is not on the schedule. We know the district does not want to have a joint meeting. So I don't understand why we couldn't have gotten this information on Friday and we could have put it in our schedule to be consistent with what's happening. So I'm very disappointed in this matter. And I don't know what I could have done or what we could have done better to work with staff to have an understanding on this schedule.
I'm equally disappointed, not just in the schedule itself, but in the fact that we have not heard back from the board at all about the joint meeting. I said, Board President, Mr. Phillips, has indicated he does not see a need for joint meetings. And I worry that even though board policy requires a joint meeting in the first quarter, and in the third quarter, that we're not seeing anything on their schedule that says that they're willing to go along with their own board policy. I would hate for it to see that they decided to change the board policy to eliminate these joint meetings again, but we're not hearing anything at all, so we'll have to play it by ear. I will be sending out a letter to the full board later this afternoon, and just reminding them about the board policy and the need for a joint review of these audits, both the performance and the financial audits. Asking us to come before the board and giving us 1 minute to comment on them, or even 90 seconds. That's a laughable joke. It's insulting because the board is just not as finely tuned in with these audits as the CBOC is. But we should see how the board handles this. Okay, anything else on this item? No?
May I add something?
Absolutely.
This is Margarita. I just wanted to say that I'm sorry that you were disappointed about that date. When I was drafting that part of the Friday letter, I was looking at the board meeting dates when I saw that, and next time I think it would have been helpful if I would have, like, at a minimum just emailed Mr. Younghair about that. So I'm sorry if I should have probably done that, so I'm sorry about that. But I just wanted to say that I'm going off of the scheduled board meeting dates, which is why you're seeing the 24th.
Thank you very much.
Don,
Somebody's talking.
Lorraine,
Okay.
I have a question for Anton. Anton, in the descriptions, could we just go over what they mean? Now, for instance, the entrance conference with CBOC, we had that when when Bailey, a representative, introduced themselves. The exit conference, I assume, is today when we have questions on the draft audit. Accept the report. Now, we used to have a joint meeting where both the financial and the performance audit companies would come and present slideshows or whatever to us. Are we getting that this year?
Well, I don't, based on what Ms. Romo just said, the answer is no.
Okay, well, when will we get the report, the finished report?
Well, under the schedule, that we're
because I see the date, the 31st, but that's when it's legally, that's the legal deadline to get it.
well, under the schedule that I prepared, which the staff reviewed, at that point, we were thinking about having the final report presented at the joint meeting, but now
Right.
we're not, looks like we're not having a joint meeting. So we got to redo the schedule. I
Yeah.
would think that we would accept it at our March meeting,
Mhm. Okay,
and the board would accept it at their meeting on the 24th, according to what Ms. Romo has advised us.
okay,
And but we don't have a schedule for the performance audit because we were supposed to have the entrance or exit conference today, and the draft isn't available. So I don't know where we are on the performance audit.
well, the performance exit conference on your schedule is for next month.
I know, but it was originally for today.
Oh.
So it would be consistent, so we would have time to review it. So if we have that exit conference at our March meeting, and they may not have enough time to make changes if any are required before it goes to the board on the 24th. So
Right.
anyway, the whole schedule is up in the air as far as I'm concerned, and I'm very disappointed. You know, we published this schedule every month for the last 6 months, so it doesn't seem to me it would be difficult to agree on the dates.
Mhm.
Also, the
Okay.
calendar that we put together has also been shared with the district and the board. It says on their proposed joint meeting. So
Right.
if they're paying attention, if they're actually reading this stuff, they should have noticed it.
Mhm.
It is disappointing on this. And on the draft performance audit that we're going to get on March 8th, as if there's things that we want changed on there, I mean, we're not going to see it again before it comes before the board for their approval.
Mhm.
So we don't know what the changes were made on
Mhm.
there.
Is
Yeah,
this a legal requirement that we get to see it, or a policy requirement?
Well, the board is supposed to accept it.
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't say that
And
the
the C-
CBOC has to legally has to accept it, but it is a board policy.
Mhm.
Well, it's a legal requirement for the CBOC to accept it also. I mean, that's one of our primary duties, is to accept and review the financial and performance audit.
Right.
But there's no requirement in law to review the drafts.
Mhm.
That is something, and I think Mr. Ash spoke to that apparently most CBOCs don't have a exit conference
Yeah.
with the auditor, but certainly this is best practice.
Mhm.
Most CBOCs haven't become intimate with the grand jury. Most CBOCs have not become intimate with the Securities Exchange Commission, the IRS, the FBI, the state attorney general, the district attorney, and very expensive forensic auditors either. I think we're reacting to past practices here in the district by trying to make sure that we don't run into those kinds of problems again. I hope that the district and the board would embrace those ideas as well. You know, in Proposition 39, it says that the CBOC is an independent body. In our board policy, it says that we are an independent body. And we appreciate the independence, but I don't think that anybody envisioned that we are independent as in being a completely separate body like the United States and the Soviet Union is, where we don't talk to each other, that we don't work with each other, that we don't cooperate with each other. The idea is that we're partners when it comes to this, what we're trying to accomplish. And it would behoove us all if the board and the CBOC would work as partners together at the same time on things like these audits, because the audits are one of the biggest issues that we deal with.
Mhm.
It's not something to be taken lightly. So, you know, keeping us out of the loop on board approval on the 24th, I don't think it's accomplishing what Prop 39 envisioned. Okay, anything else on the audits or the
Very
audit
quickly,
schedules? Right.
One of the things that I wanted to amend my proposal, so in providing a footnote in terms of what the other building funds are, one of the things that we've done in the past is provide a reconciliation of that resource 9790 so that you can see all of the details. And so that's something that we have that probably is a little bit more transparent than just adding the footnote describing what these things are. And so I have, not able to share my screen right now, but we do have a reconciliation of 9790. And so I'll be sharing that with the committee so that you'll be able to see all of the line item details and the reconciliation of what those dollars represent, which I think is a more accurate and in-depth description versus the footnote, if that's okay.
Okay. Anything else? All right, then we're going to turn things over on item number H. We've got a lot of staff reports.
Yes, and I was able to log on. So Melissa, just so you know, we're back up and running. So I can go ahead and share my screen. So let me do that now.
And if you get a chance to make me a host, I'd be able to share as well.
Okay. Well, let me see if I can even do that because I gave hosting over to Don, Mr. Gosney. So I'm still a host. Okay. So Melissa, where are you in this? Sorry for the technical difficulties today.
We're really glad we got to have the meeting.
We are.
A little bit of a panic at 1 o'clock, but we're glad you're all here. We're glad it all worked out. Thank
So you should be a co-host now.
Yes.
And share screen. All right. So moving on to staff reports. Oh, that was not what I expected to happen. But okay.
What did you expect to happen?
Well, normally it just goes down in the PDF, and instead it opened another window on the internet, which surprised me. But
Okay.
I'm not going to argue with it. If the internet is working, we don't argue. This is what we've learned today. So just because we do have a lot of additional people online here, my name is Ellen Mejia Hooper. I'm the Director of Facility Planning and Construction. Louis Fries, unfortunately, is not able to join us today for a personal commitment. So I will be doing the update on the facility master plan projects. As every month, we have a list of our projects in process. Riverside, that's in design, is somewhat connected to the Riverside Soil Stabilization Project. So the Soil Stabilization Project, which you see down in design build, has some components of bringing in very large pieces of equipment and also adding these stabilization pillars to the ground. So that's disrupting some of the playgrounds and lunch areas that are available on the campus. So we have split out a separate project to deal with the ramifications of the soil stabilization project. We've peeled it off separately in order to try to make the review process through our permit agencies as clean as possible for the soil stabilization because we're on such a short timeline. So that's this project. It's just kicking off now. So we are very early in design. Korematsu fall protection, again, is pending DSA approval. There was a response from the structural reviewer. He is asking for additional calculations. So there is still feedback that our design group has to give to DSA in this back check process. So they are working on those calculations now. Cameron, we are just beginning design, although we are, there's a paperwork difficulty with getting the contract or the architect under contract. So that's the story for both Cameron's and Collins. Because they have similar scopes, we join those two projects together with a single architectural firm. So we are working on establishing that contract and have committed timelines to the architect that if they cannot get their contracting together by then, we will have to move on to another selection. Hercules Middle and High School is in the RFQP process. So we will be hiring an architect for that. The RFQP has been released and is on the street. So we are looking forward to architectural responses. Kennedy High School, I know there's additional discussion on that further in the meeting. For the most part, though, we are waiting for the prioritization process to be complete to have the most correct response to that project. Shannon Elementary School, we've had 2 design meetings so far with the architects. We've done a site walk as well as an initial concept review of the placement of the multipurpose room. So this critical needs project is to replace the existing multipurpose room, which is really just a small portable, and so a very old small portable that does not have a proper kitchen. So we are replacing that in whole with a new multipurpose room and new kitchen. So that's a very fun project. It's nice to be back in design again. And so we are working on that. Stige is another critical needs project that's kind of in the wings, waiting on the results of the prioritization process. As for Lake, the RFP has been released. So we are moving on from the RFQ process. We had 9 design build teams submit. We have shortlisted that down to 6, which we issued the RFP to, and they will be preparing their documents. And so we will be reviewing that in the next couple months when it comes back. Pinole High School field restoration is preparing for bid. We did get the final package out of DSA. So that does clear the way for us to be able to take that onto bidding. So we're just cleaning up the loose ends of the multiple packages to make sure that we've got all the scope covered, and we'll be sending that out soon. E-rate 24 wireless upgrades is out to bid. Riverside soil stabilization is in design, and they have been doing additional testing. They have submitted their initial soils review, and that is in the hands of Allen Crop and Associates, which is the district representative for soil engineering. So they are reviewing their analysis. We've also had joint meetings with the California Geologic Society, which is the what part of the permit agencies that we need to go through, along with DSA, the Division of State Architects. So there's kind of this double agency review. We always have to go through CGS, but in this particular project, it's a much more extensive review because it has so much to do with soil. So it's really a fascinating project. But it's making progress. We just received a 50% CD set this week. So that's great. Richmond High critical needs project, it's coming along nicely. You'll see the pictures in a few minutes. They really are tying up the last pieces of the projects. We have a projected completion date of February 22nd. We were a little in danger when all the rain came of maybe that not working out, although I'm crossing my fingers that this little gap of good weather will allow us enough time to get the paving in and finish painting. And Michelle and Obama's just in closeout. Construction projects. Fairmont, we're in critical needs phase 5, which is replacing the flooring in a bunch of portables, as well as replacing the siding on the library portable. For the most part, the flooring is complete. The siding, again, had to wait for an open window of sunny weather. And so we're here, and so that's in progress. And the E-rate year 23 is in progress. They've gone through a couple schools now already. And they are moving forward. So you see the schools listed there: Collins, Harding, Madera, Mira Vista, and Olinda. So Richmond High, this is the new gym. So we have a view from the new quad over the top of the bioswales, looking at the new building. The building looks like on this side hasn't been painted yet, but this side fully has been painted. So this kind of like pinky color will turn into the red. So you're seeing the colored stucco underneath that gets painted over to the red color. And that way, if the building gets scratched, you don't see the colors come through as much. So it's coming along nicely. We also have the flooring has been completed. So the striping's in. You can see the letter R there for the new logo. This plywood that that's shown here is because they're putting up the padding on the walls around the gym. So the padding, this was from obviously a couple days ago because of our posting, but I have seen the pictures today and they have finished the padding in the gym. So it's looking really good. We have bleachers coming in as well. The dance floor has been complete. The restrooms for the most part are complete. The stucco on the elevator tower is still coming along. It had a little bit of a break with the weather that we had, but again, I saw pictures today and it has the colored stucco on it, so it's coming along. This is a really fun feature. We have the weight room has a roll-up door that comes out into a patio area that's connected or that's adjacent to the stadium plaza. So they were just putting in the rebar and stabilization for that concrete. The health center is almost ready to go. We had to reorder some parts for the electrical panel. So besides electricity, it's up and put together, and all the interior components are complete except for our electrical. And so here is some of those interiors. So we have the RN lab. We also have an exam room. Beyond the clinical health side, there are also quite a few mental health or counseling offices that are within this building. And there's we were able to right size them better. So there's quite a few more counseling rooms than there were before.
Ellen, before you get on to Fairmont, can you go 2
Yes.
slides back, please?
2 slides back.
There we go.
This one?
There, yes,
Or-
nope.
The patio?
No, I'm sorry, Health Center.
Health center.
Yeah.
Got it.
1, 2. All right. That sure looks like typical portable type of buildings. Is it?
It is. So what happened again is that we were unable to, the original portable health center that was on Richmond did not have certification through DSA. And we were not able to get it certified. So we could not finish the gym project because we had an uncertified building on campus. And so to be able to do that, we needed to get rid of that building. However, it serves a vital function in the community. So to be able to finish up the gym project, we needed to replace the Richmond, the wellness center with a new portable instead of the old portable they were in.
Yeah, you know this because we've talked during the prioritization meetings, but I'm not a big fan of portables, temporary campuses. You call them anything you want. They're, well, that's the phrase we use, that's the Walmart version. And I don't like seeing our bond money go towards things that are not going to last, even if we continue to use them for 50 years.
Right.
I'm sorry to interrupt. The health center itself was paid for with non-bond funds, but it's such an integrated part of the Richmond High Critical Needs Project, which is bond funded. And you'll see that a little bit later if we spend some time looking at the Lathrop pay application. You'll see that there's separate funding source for the health center. So that was paid out of a different building fund.
Okay.
What fund? I mean, I don't even know the number. Where'd the money come from that then? It came from taxpayers, didn't it?
Came from Fund 40.
Was this found money under the sofa cushion, or was it, again, taxpayer money?
I believe it's RDA money. So Fund 40, once upon a time, there was redevelopment funds. And so these are funds that come through the county that we receive on an annual basis for capital projects. And so we used Fund 40 to pay for all of the expenses related to the health center.
Okay, but my point on this, and I appreciate your response on that, is unless it was a gift from a rich person in our community, one way or the other, it came out of taxpayer funds, whether we paid the taxes to the county or to the state or through the bond. Chances are, again, it was taxpayer money as opposed to developer fees. And so, again, it's the same pair of pants, just a different pocket.
Yep, it is. The difficulty with this one was we were also under a very short time period,
Understood.
right? And so, and it wasn't the intent of the original project to build this, but it became necessary for us to be able to finish our other building projects. So this was the decision made to be able to accommodate it in a similar time fashion. So.
Thank you.
Question to the chair.
Go ahead.
Forgive my ignorance, but the health center, does that service the community around it, or is that just for the students at the school?
It has the ability to serve both functions. There are, during the day, it's primarily used by students. However, it really depends on the providers that are using the facility. So there are county partners that use the wellness center and provide service. And so it really depends on their pieces, and it changes over time how much it's used by students and how much it is used by community. But one upgrade that we did do in this particular, because we were relocating it and because it was going to be a new building, we did make adjustments so that it would be able to be certified by OSHPD, which the previous one would have never been able to get that certification. It has not been certified yet, but once it does get that certification, it has more opportunities to be used by the community at large, along with the students, than it did before.
Ellen, I said, several of us have been around for a while. We've been listening to the ongoing saga about the DSA certification of that, but we got a number of people here that are brand new to this. So maybe you could just explain what you were talking about with DSA could not find the original authorization and blessings.
Right, so every project that is built needs to have DSA, which is the Division of State Architect, to approve the building plans, and then pass the actual building approval of the plans. We need to go to, there's an inspector that comes out regularly through construction, and then there's all of this paperwork that has to be submitted at the end of construction that certifies all of the testing that was occurring, that the building was built to plan, that has all of the certifications of the architect and engineers that did the original design to say that the building was built as designed, and that they certify that it is a safe facility, right? And that it meets all of the codes and requirements. In the past, that process has not been nearly as enforced as it is today. Portables are always a bit more complicated because we have PCs, which are basically, they pre-approve the building because the building is built off-site. And so once you build it off-site, they have a set of spec documents that they build it from, and they build that same building over and over again. So DSA says, okay, that building's fine, but once you get it onto site, you have to complete a large amount of paperwork to make sure that happens. And then when you move one portable from one location to another, a lot of times that process in the past was not well documented. And that's where we run into the most problems, is when a portable was documented, it was certified, it was closed out, it was fine on one site, but then it was relocated to another one. And that's when the paperwork trail becomes complicated. There's also pieces about just having tags that are on the building if you don't have the original tags, and that you can get written up for that. So there's all these little things that can happen over time. And unfortunately, when you do a new project, if you have any of these hiccups in the past, they come back to haunt you, and DSA will not allow you to complete and get another project certified until all of your open issues are resolved. And so that's the case for what happened at Richmond High.
So again, so we were not able to proceed because nobody could locate the paperwork that said that these original portables were installed correctly.
Yes.
So we had to tear it down and replace.
Right.
Correct?
And portables are hard because it's that install correctly component versus the building itself being okay. That is hard to prove later.
And how old were those original buildings?
I don't know that answer offhand, but it was way back there.
Late 1950s.
And we didn't have the paperwork for it. Surprise.
Our filing goes back, but it only goes back so far.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation.
And in general, that building was placed in a really awkward location. If you've ever been to the site, it was like right blocking the front door, and was not in the best of shape as far as exterior and building envelopes. So we can't say that we're horribly depressed to see it go, but that was certainly not the process in which we were hoping that the building was going to go in.
And did anybody at Richmond High complain that we tore down that old 70-year-old building and replaced it?
No, I didn't. We didn't have a line of people outside my door. Like there was nothing. We feel so unloved.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes. So Fairmont, we like I said before, we are replacing the flooring and quite a few portables that the flooring in those portables were in really sad shape. They'd been patched. They had a lot of different pieces that were coming apart on them. So the floor was removed, new underlayment was installed that helps with the rigidity of the floor. So here you can see the carpet before some of the portables had carpet, some of the portables had VCT. We have replaced it with the new vinyl composition floor tile, which is what we used in the hallways and the classrooms in the main building. The added advantage of this particular product is that it does not require waxing or stripping. And waxing and stripping in portables is especially hard on them because the amount of water and the water that sits there for as long as it does to be able to do a proper strip is hard on the subflooring. So the idea of going to a non-wax product is really, really good for the portables in particular. So that is the end of the project report, unless there's additional questions.
Thank you.
All right, we can move on to, where'd it go? The next one. Did I go too far?
Nope, keep going.
Down?
Nope, nope.
Down or up?
Page 6.
Page 6.
Up. Okay, here we go. So the next one is updating the facility master plan. So the facility master plan, as Mr. Gosney is well aware, we had our meeting 5 of the prioritization committee on February 2nd. And you'll see here in the table, the recommended criteria and proposed metrics for that criteria, which will be going forward to the facilities committee. Our next step on this is to take this to the facilities committee and really confirm our process. Since we do have obviously 2 new members there, we want to make sure that our path forward is still in congruence with their vision of how this will be completed. And then we also are gathering input on the district-wide initiatives that were included as part of the Measure R language of the HVAC and technology components. And then once we have the different needs lists from the priority lists and some of these district-wide initiatives, will create options to combine these elements together and create a final plan.
Ellen,
So
will this be coming before the facilities meeting at their Friday meeting this week?
Yes, so facilities is Friday the 12th from 3 to 5. So all are welcome to join to see that presentation.
Okay. And I
Any
just
other-
want to add in there, as somebody that's representing the CBOC on there, I appreciate all the work that the district has been doing to try to work on these and the criteria for prioritization. As you might imagine, we get different opinions, and they're trying to weigh them all. They're doing a great job to take votes on each one of them, so that it's not just it's not district calling the shots. Okay, and I appreciate all the work that's been done on that.
Thank you.
Even if I've been outvoted several times.
I wasn't going to say anything, Don.
Yeah.
All right, so that is that component. So that was the facility and master plan update. Then we have the construction pay app. So on these, Melissa,
Yeah.
do we actually, I need help.
So I wanted to actually ask the committee, Ellen, if you can stop on page 60 for me. I would love to share with the committee this payment approval form, which is on page 60, because I think it's a really good demonstration of some of the internal controls that we've put in place. And this is a good opportunity to kind of see how we do it. As Ellen was kind of describing the project, she was sharing with you the health center. And then I pointed out that there's another funding source outside of the bond that's covering some of that cost. And so what you see here is the payment approval form. So just to give a little bit of background, there were 3 invoices that were selected by the CBOC for review and requested for this meeting. And so we've provided them, and they're here in the packet. And so part of what you'll see on the page before on a gold sheet, that's a copy of the warrant. So that's the check. And then on page 60, this is the payment approval form. And so this is essentially a contract reconciliation that we do every time we process a payment. And so what you'll see for all 3 of the invoices that were requested is they were part funded by the bond fund and part funded by other funding sources. And so you'll see that breakdown, excuse me, at the top. You'll see there's a construction account code. That's the 219745. And then you'll see there's a design account code. And that's because part of the accounting structure is helping to determine what these funds were used for. Are they design fees or are they construction fees? Since this project's design build, it has both. And so already we have 2 different account codes based on the pay application. And then the health center has its own codes, and you can see the first number is 40. And so that's what identifies the fund. So what I really love about these payment approval forms is that it's really an opportunity for the approver to take a look at where we are with the contract across all of the different accounts and where we are kind of in terms of the project. So this one is a little bit more complicated, made by the retentions. So we hold a 5% retention pursuant to the public contract code of the construction cost. And so that's also broken out here. And so you can see for any pay application, Ellen, if you can go to the next page, page 61, this is the pay application itself. This is an American Institute of Architects form that's used. It's the G702, G703. And so what you see on this form is you see a number of signatures. You see that the design build entity has signed. You see that the project manager has signed. You see that the DSA, Division of State Architect Inspector of Record, has signed. On the architect line, it says NA, again, because this is a design build project. So there's so many signatures that go into this before it's even turned in here for processing. And then you see there's a number of check marks, right? So there's a lot of verification to make sure that everything that's here is detailed. This is the cover sheet, the G702, next page. And behind it is the G703. This is also sometimes referred to as a schedule of values. And so this is the line by line breakdown of all of the line items associated with this project as broken down. And so pay applications are quite large in their size. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to give a little bit of information. I know that these invoices were specifically requested, so I'm not sure if there are any particular questions or if you guys would like me to just kind of continue walking you through the invoices.
Excuse me a second, Melissa, scroll back. Nope. There we go. Is that really a signature up top?
So this, you can see that there's a notary. So we have a certified pay application, and so this is the notary down below.
But that big mark across the page there, is that supposed to be a signature?
No, that is not a signature.
Okay.
Melissa,
Yes.
when you put a packet like this in next time,
Uh-huh.
could you have a cover sheet and just say, this is provided in response to item KA, whatever it responds to, because I saw this, and I didn't know what the heck it was. And then I found out on like page 113 that it was something that Anton had requested. So just, to give us a heads up what we're looking at here.
Absolutely.
Anton?
I want to thank the district for these invoices. Going forward, could we work out a process if we ask for these? We asked for some additional ones from the December, but they couldn't get in the packet. If we ask for around, say, the 15th of the month for next month's CBOC, would that give the district enough time to put it in the packet? And so we could have kind of a routine. We would ask by the 15th of February for the March packet.
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, the other question is, I have on page 80, the three think pads. Do we know who got those three think pads?
Yes, so there were 3 laptops that were purchased. 2 of them were funded 50% by bond, 50% general fund. One of them is for our new Director of Facilities Planning and Construction, Miss Mihia Hooper. And the other one is being used here in the office for our plan room. And so, as you can imagine, there are a number of documents and drawings that we use, and we need them both in electronic and in paper form. And so we have a very large plan room here. The 3rd laptop was purchased for our Associate Superintendent, Mr. Freeze, and it was paid fully out of the general fund. And those are the 3 laptops as indicated here.
Thank you.
And so kind of in the interest of time, maybe we'll keep going. So we did include in this packet, there is both the Richmond High construction newsletter, as well as the Richmond High project status report, which provides some of the project details and contract details associated with the project. We did provide our suite of monthly financial reports. So as you can see them here, this is our consolidated budget status report that represents across the entire program. In green, we have our our facilities master plan carve out. And so this is more detailed information specific to the projects that are part of the 2016 facilities master plan implementation. And these are details that we'll continue to report on projects going forward. Starting on page 91, this is our site budget authorization form cousin, which is our bond program spending to date by site. And so this gives you the monthly reconciliation across all of our sites in a 2-pager. And then moving right along. So this is an item I wanted to spend a little bit of time on. There are 2 reports that we provide on an annual basis. One of them is this report, which is our annual KPI summary. And one of the things that we talked about in last month's meeting, Ellen, if you can scroll to the next page, is right here under note number 5. So what we had reported in the KPI was that the last board action taken was in November of 20, and it identified a potential issuance. And then at our last CBOC meeting on January 11th, we confirmed that at this time there is no plan for an issuance for Measure R. And so we just added that note here. The other thing that I think has created some confusion on this report is this is a report that's dated as of December 31st, 2020. And so there are a couple of sections of this report. For example, Ellen, if you can scroll down to note number 8, where it identifies prior, which would mean through June 30 of 20, right? June 30 of 20 is the prior fiscal year, and then it identifies fiscal year 21, which is really confusing because this is a report that's dated as of December 31st, 2020. So what fiscal year 2021 means is that represents July 1st of 2020 through December 31st of 2020. The reason why we like to separate it this way is as a school district, we report things in fiscal year. And so we believe that it's much cleaner, and especially for financial records, and we need to make sure that we have the source documents that match up to all of this information, that even though we're presenting this to you and this is through that calendar year, that December 31 of 2020, that we're still identifying the fiscal year of 2021. And so the recommendation that we have, since this still seems to create a little bit of confusion, is maybe we add a footnote so that we make it clear that our representation here of fiscal year 2021 just represents that period of July 1 through December 31 of 2020. And so if the committee accepts that recommendation, we can make an additional change to this report to just highlight that so that that's clear. But we don't want to change it from fiscal year 2021 because, again, we want to make sure that this financial information is always something that can be looked back upon and verified. And so that's our recommendation in terms of the question about what does fiscal year 2021 mean if this is a report that just lives in calendar year 2020. Mr. Youngher, go ahead.
I think the issue I have, for example, when I compared the 12/31/19 balances with the beginning balance for this one, it was a $750,000 difference. So, I'm talking about the prior period forward. And then when I tried to, you have on page 180 or 108 and 109, you have the fiscal impact of report 13 analysis, which does give me the calendar year. As I understand it, those give me the calendar year variances. So when I try to reconcile those to this report, I can't do it. So it's very confusing to me. If that column only represents 6 months, is what you're suggesting, that you would put the footnote, in other words, just January to, or July to December of 2020, right? That's what you're suggesting. That's only 6 months. So where's the other 6 months of the calendar year represented? Is it in the prior balance?
Yes.
Well, then that is confusing because you're telling me that you're only, so I cannot reconcile the report 13 analysis on page 108 to this report. And that's to me is very confusing. Seems to me I should be able to take the prior year balance, which is 12/31/19, taking your report 13 on page 108, which I believe are full year numbers. They're not 6 months numbers, and come up with the new balances. And I can't do that.
So
And as I said, the prior balances were even when there was a $750,000, even starting with the prior balance. So again, I would suggest we not try to resolve this here. I would love to just talk to you about this offline.
absolutely. And, our initial thoughts are, this bond program KPI summary report was something that was previously created. And so I think in its current form, we think that that is the most accurate representation. But I also understand and hear what you're asking for. And so maybe this is a different type of report that we could provide that would really help to support the annual calendar year reporting that the CBOC does. And so I agree, we'd love to work together with you to come up with something that will be that demonstration and validation that you're looking for, but we really don't think that this is the right form to do that with, to keep this KPI kind of in the form that was previously agreed to and accepted.
Well, I think we should review it and decide what form it should be in that makes it accurate.
We we love to work with you guys on these things.
Well, but
I have a comment.
I sent out all these questions 2 weeks ago and didn't get any response. So that's why it's on the agenda. I didn't want to have it on the agenda. Thought we could work it out ahead of time.
We can. I've had some personal issues and haven't been in the office full time the last couple of weeks, but we'll definitely work together on it. Go ahead, Ms. DeWitt.
Just a suggestion that you create a variance report, a simple calendar year to calendar year variance report, and just handle those adjustments that you need to make in that variance report. And then a member of the public like ourselves would not have to go to your end of, your last 6 months of one fiscal year report and then the next 6 months of another one. You just do it for us and show us the variance. And then we have, certain figures in that variance report that we can go back and look at the original report and say, okay, I see how that ties and I see how that ties. It's very simple.
Absolutely. And I will take that if I can as a pivot to kind of continue down the financial reports because we have our other annual report in here.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Lupe had her hand up and then I've got a quick
I'm
comment.
sorry, I didn't see. Sorry.
What, Lupe?
I just have kind of a comment to what Anton was talking about. Just making sure that we are working together because I keep hearing you say, well, another report is, available, or I can work on another report.
You're muted. We can't hear you.
I said, how far did you hear about Anton? I'm backing up what Anton's saying, just, really figuring out how we can make one steady, report that accommodates the needs, because I think I keep hearing, the work that it takes. I think a lot of what we've been talking about is the extra work that staff has to do to accommodate the CBOC. And then you're throwing in there, really, putting out an additional report on your behalf to be able to accommodate. So I think really working together to make something that's gonna make sense when it comes to, the way that things are done, so it's not confusing, because being one of the newer members, it seems that we keep throwing, in these new reports, and it is a little bit confusing.
right, and I've got one request. It is not unusual for any of these documents to be revised. That happens all the time. We certainly get it on your architectural drawings all the time. But as you have with your architectural drawings, down the lower right-hand corner, each one of them has got the name of that drawing, and it will have a revision number. And so when we revise things like this KPI report, we need to make it crystal clear on there that it was revised. Somewhere on there, put down, revised, and then give a date, so that we know that, so we don't confuse. I mean, for the annual report committee, for instance, if they try to grab the KPI, which one are they going to grab, the old one or the new one? If they don't, if they're not, it's not clear on the report that it's revised, then they could very easily grab the wrong one. And of course, in the file name, it needs to say that as well. So, and it's not just on this report, but any of these reports that we revise. Lord knows on the agenda packet, I've got numerous revisions. I mean, this agenda packet itself, it says on the file name, Rev 2. So anyway, your help on that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Absolutely. So kind of continuing on. So this is report 13. And so we'll jump ahead to the variance report for this.
Melissa,
Yes?
I noticed at the beginning of the packet, you threw in another report 13. And
Yeah.
that was, what was that about?
So we have two variances this month. We have the report 13 variance, which is on page 104, which is a single month. So this represents the change from December to January. And so this is kind of our cheat sheet. If you want to know what's happened in the last month, you can see right here that we had that burn rate of 1.6 million. And you can also see that we are in the process of doing our future year salary projections because it's that time of year in the school district. And so we've made some revisions based on our initial planning, revisions that when finalized will be coming forward to the board, but have not been finalized at this time. But we want to be sure to share the information with you as we're doing it. The other variance report is on page 108, and this is the calendar year variance. So there are two annual reports that we agreed to back in February of last year that would be the annual reports, one of them being the KPI report and the other one being a calendar year variance report. And so that's what this is. And so what's really fantastic about this report and what I like about it so much is it really gives you all of the highlights. If you want to know what happened in the calendar year of 2020, it's all listed here in its finite detail. And one of the things that we're going to be sharing based on the conversation we had earlier is we'll be sharing the reconciliation of the non-bond resource so that you'll have all of those details as well. We love having the extra sets of eyes. It's wonderful to have a group that checks every single line for us so that we know if there's anything that we've missed, we can get it fixed. But this really is the calendar year 2020 in a snapshot. And so it'll show you all of the changes, some of our highlights, like the state funding that we received, some of the significant milestones, like approving the final phase of implementation for our final projects of the 2016 facilities master plan. It shows some of the pooled interest earnings that we've accrued. It identifies our bond sales. And so it really gives you in this very concise way, the summary of what happened over the calendar year. And so that's why there are two variances this month. And so we have two annual reports, our KPI and then this one. And then the other variance report is part of the suite of the monthly reports that we always do provide.
Well, Melissa, Lorraine here.
Yes.
You also have on page 38, you have a report 13 that's entitled Bond Program Financial Status as of June 30th, 2020 preliminary.
Yeah.
Is that the one that you talked about that you're preparing for new salaries or something?
So the one that's on page 38, I think that was included as reference based on the item of the financial audit. And one of the things, since we're on page 38, that I'd like to point out, when we publish the report for June 30, you see how right after, as of June 30, 2020, it says preliminary?
Yes.
That's because for us, there's a couple of times in the year, specifically June 30 being one of them, where the financial reports were committed to providing you the monthly information, but it's preliminary because we're closing the book. So our fiscal year ends June 30. So we have to go through an accrual process. And that's something that typically happens in July so that we can get our final, right? And so whenever we provide financial information that's preliminary because we're working on closing the books or we're working on one of our interim, it may show preliminary next to the date. And that way, you know, this information is subject to change because there are some adjustments that may still be made. So this report, I think, was included because it was part of the reference to the performance audit, and this is an older financial report.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
That is correct. This was backup information on Anton's audit schedules.
Right, right.
Okay, Ms. DeWitt?
Yes. I have to ask then, since you brought up the non-bond fund question, and you indicated that you were going to add that to the report 13. Is that right? And then, or you were going to reference it in the variance report. And I want to ask if those quote, let me be complete about this question. You earlier in this meeting, you referred to the state grants as non-bond funds. And then, but state grants are now included in report 13 and also in the facility master plan and all the attendant reports that go along with that.
So
But-
yeah.
Okay, but then there's another reference to quote non-bond funds, which are developer fees and such. And I see those referenced in note number 5. And as of this particular report, we're looking at nearly $7 million in those supplemental funds, also regarded and referred to as non-bond funds. So you've heard me ask a number of times if these could please be included in the facility master plan and included in all the attendant reports and included in report 13, even though they're not bond funds. And we have no authority to oversee that, but it's not good practice to be planning without including those. It's a conundrum, but nevertheless, that's what I continue to say.
So one of the things that I've shared now, because I mentioned it earlier, and can you guys see this? It says Fund 21 Resource 9790 Bond Related Revenue. Can you guys see that right now?
Yes.
So this is when we were having the conversation earlier in the meeting about the financial audit, and there was a question about why the numbers didn't appear to match. Within the bond fund, so within Fund 21 is the bond fund, there is a non-bond measure resource, and that's the 9790. So we have a number of different resources in the bond fund. We have Measure D 2010, we have Measure E 2012. This is also within Fund 21, but it's a non-bond resource. And so one of the questions, and I think it's an excellent question, was, well, what does this actually mean? And so when I mentioned earlier that we wanted to share the reconciliation of the non-bond resource within Fund 21, this is what I was referring to, because I think a footnote doesn't do it justice. So this is the non-bond resource within the bond fund. Also, there are non-bond funds. And so there are other funds that are used to support facilities, right? Like the developer fees fund and the RDA money that we mentioned earlier when we talked about the health center. And so it can get incredibly confusing trying to decipher between the two. And so, yes, there are notes in report 13 that kind of reference both. And so we'll be sharing this with the committee. I wanted to just show it with you guys so that you could see it. But I want to be clear because we've talked a lot about kind of the nitty gritties today. So there is a non-bond measure resource within Fund 21, which is where when we receive a state facilities grant that is based on a bond funded project, then it's going to go through Fund 35 and then appropriately here into this resource. There could be a school facility grant that we receive that doesn't necessarily go to the bond fund because it's related to a project outside of the bond program. But the majority of the state facility program grants that we have received have been because we've taken the bond dollars and then leveraged them to do the projects and then applied to the state to get additional funds to continue to move the bond program forward. And so significantly, I would say the majority of the grants that we've received do travel through Fund 35 into Fund 21 and go into this non-bond measure resource, which we will provide the reconciliation of, as you see here, which should help answer and clarify some of the questions that were brought up earlier. So I'm going to stop sharing this one because I know we still have a lot to talk about in the meeting today. And we have talked before about how we need to provide information about all of the different facility funds that we have and all of the projects and needs that we have. We're just not at that place today.
Anton?
Okay.
I think to speak to Sally's question, I don't think we got a complete response. The point is, historically, we've included in the reporting sources of monies other than bond funds. We're not doing that now. We're not consistent. We didn't do that on Wilson and some other projects. All we're asking is just be consistent with what you've done in the past. We did talk to State Department of Ed on that, and they say it's very appropriate to do that. So I don't understand the staff's response, but I'd like to speak to page 104, which tells me there's a $1.3 million increase in the estimated cost for the central costs. That's a 21% increase. I would like to understand that $1.3 million, 21% increase. Is staff able to give us not necessarily today, but able to provide us a detail on that?
Absolutely. And so these are the central costs for the future fiscal years of 22 and 23. And it's based on the staffing projections that we have to support the projects that we'll be designing, constructing, and managing over the next, 2.5 years. And so,
well, and does it include Measure R projects?
It does, because we're projecting out 2.5 years. And so knowing that we have the final implementation of our 2016 facilities master plan and potentially the initiation of some of the Measure R projects, these central costs include not only salary projections for staff, but also consultants that support these projects.
That's fine. I think it would be helpful if you could provide that.
Okay. And so also the AP checklist is here. So that's included in your packet. And so if you'll let us know, so a couple of things we just want to let you know. February is a slightly adjusted schedule for us. And so the full district is on holiday from February 15th through February 19th. And so what that means is essentially there's an entire week that we're not here. And so you'll notice that in the AP checklist that you'll see next month. It'll be a little bit smaller. And so not all pay applications might make that consolidated February schedule. Because in order for us to be processing a check the last week of February, it would need to essentially be in, completely signed, verified, and processed this week. And so what I will ask is for this month only, for the invoices that the CBOC would like to select from this month's AP checklist, if you could do it by this Friday, the 12th, so that we could ensure that we could provide that to you timely for the next packet, since we won't be here on the 15th. But the AP checklist is included here. And then as we looked at before, the annual variance report. And so with that, if there are any last questions, and I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Gosney.
Thank you. And when she says turn it in by Friday, I'm betting she doesn't mean 5 o'clock on Friday. Yeah, give her a chance to react. Okay. Thank you very much for the staff reports. Okay, we have 4 consent calendar items, which include items starting on page 7, items I through L, which are the adoption of the minutes, the member information request log, the approved recommendation log, and the invoice, the most recent invoice from our independent counsel, Adam Ferber. If there are no questions or comments on those, we'll just accept them as presented. Okay, I like that. Go on to on page 8, item M, membership. You got your membership. You got your membership. Item N is your membership roster. I need to bring up to everybody on the membership roster. We have an issue that is still being discussed, whether when the board approved a resolution on April 8th, I believe it was, creating a new CBOC for Measure R, they also included many of us on that Measure R CBOC. And with a new CBOC, where our contention is that the clock starts fresh on that CBOC as opposed to the previous CBOC. Well, we have some, again, bone of contention. You've got some disagreements on that. It has not been resolved. We will try to resolve it as soon as we can. But in the meantime, the roster shows a date starting on the date that resolution was passed. Okay. We also, item O, we have the 6 new member applications. You might recall a couple of those are a simple renewal, for instance, of Sally DeWitt. And we had to play a little musical chairs on a couple of others because of vacancies. We have to mandated positions, you know, with parent or guardian that's a member of a PTA. But then we also have new member applications from Tom Panis, from Consuelo Lara, Jason Lindsay. These are supposed to go before the facilities committee. We do not yet know whether they are going to be on Friday's agenda because the agenda packet has not come out yet. But we hope it does because some of them have been on the docket now for several months. We need to be able to go through the facilities committee and then go to the full board so that they can have an open discussion and vote on those. Any questions on any of those? Okay. We have just about 1 hour left, and we've got a couple of important items on there, so that's why I'm just kind of rushing through a few of these things. On the chair report, you got a copy of my last chair report, but I've reported before the changes implemented on behalf of the full board by the new president of the board. I'm not seeing anywhere where these changes were brought up to the board for their consideration, nor have I seen anything where the public has been allowed to weigh in. The big issue is removing standing reports on the agenda. President Phillips wrote that these reports were one of the reasons why the meetings tend to go over budget. It couldn't be the lengthy staff reports or board members speaking at length. It had to be the standing reports. Of course, that's a tough one to sell when there are no standing reports and the meetings still go long. I spoke about this at a recent board meeting under public forum, and I got a response from board member Reckler, but no one has stepped forward to actually discuss this yet. I will still lobby for allowing the public to speak at the meetings, without having to wait 4 to 5 hours till the end of the meeting, as has happened at the most recent study sessions. I believe that the chair reports are not just a means to inform the board of what's going on with the CBOC, but a way to inform the public. And I know that the public is listening because I routinely get a number of texts and emails immediately after my reports, even when they're extremely late at night. So somebody is listening. I just wish I appreciate the fact that several board members did reach out to me after the last one. It tells me that I got their attention. Okay. All right. There's no questions or comments on that. All right. Next item is item Q, status of the Kennedy High School critical needs and rebuild. Now I brought this up because it's something it worries me. The plan is to demolish the front building. And this discussion is not about whether that building should be demolished or not. The discussion is on the timing and the plans, because the idea that what we've been told so far is that when the students at Kennedy High School come back and 70% of the classrooms are no longer exist, that then they will be moved over to the temporary campus on the south side. Well, that temporary campus was originally built to house the Stige students when they rebuilt that school. But if the Kennedy High School students are there, then that means that you're going to have to build a new temporary campus on the Stige campus. And we've all seen how expensive some of these temporary campuses can be. We're talking millions of dollars. And that's money that comes out of bond program. And when we already know that we're $500 or $600 million short on the bond program, I'd hate to tell any elementary school neighborhood that we can't rebuild your school because we spent your money on a temporary campus at this school or that school or the other. But one of the problems too is that Calibra Beta is still using that temporary campus. They're on that temporary campus until they can move into their new building, which is over in Terra Hills. Now they were a little bit ambitious on their scheduling. They thought that they could get DSA approval in 3 months. Well, it's been about 15 months now and they still haven't broken ground. But part of that problem is that they don't have the funding from the state yet. But it means that they need to break ground, build a school, okay, and then relocate over there. That's not going to happen overnight. Realistically speaking, I do not believe that our schools are going to reopen for the spring semester this year. But for the fall semester, in just 6 months, that's a possibility. So what do we do when we need to relocate those students at Kennedy High School and there's no place to relocate them to? And so if you take a look at page 162 and beyond, I put together quite a list of questions for staff. And I'd appreciate it if staff could go over these questions one by one and give us a response. It does not have to be a lengthy response. Some of them are very simple questions, but I need to make sure everybody understands that this will not end here. This video clip will be distributed out to the media and on social media. There will be newspaper articles about the future of Kennedy High School. As soon as this meeting is over with, we're going to have a meeting of the Richmond Neighborhood Coordinating Council where this may be brought up again. So we want to be able to share as much information as possible. I think one of the problems that we have been having is the lack of information that has been made available to the CBOC, the public, and the board on this issue. And so I'm hoping that this will dispel some of that information so that we're all on the same page. Nobody is saying that the staff is keeping secrets from us, but at the same time, they know more than we do, and we want to change that. So if you don't mind, I'm going to turn things over to staff. Maybe you could take a look at those questions that we have asked on here and respond to each one of them, please. Okay.
Yes. So as you know, Mr. Freeze was not able to join us this evening. However, there are quite a few of these questions that are not applicable yet. So what has happened? Back in 2016, the facilities master plan determined critical need projects for all of the priority sites. These critical need projects were phased over time, and we are on the last chunk of them now. So there were several increments of these critical needs projects. Kennedy was in the last phase of the increments for the implementation process. Therefore, when we were implementing that last phase, the board budget for this project was brought forward. The scope that is in the original facilities master plan, which was printed in 2016, called for the demolition of the 100 and 200 building, which are the two front buildings, the relocation of those classrooms to the temporary area, as well as a reallocation of the 500 building to accommodate an office so that there was a new front door to Kennedy in the meantime. The board did approve this budget. However, we knew we were going through this prioritization process. And as with Stige, this is a complicated project, right? It has many moving parts to it. And
Ellen, your picture and voice froze.
Between the time of the demolition of the campus and the completion of the rebuild. So for now, that money has been sitting there, although it has been budgeted. We have not moved forward with an RFP process to hire an architect. We have not moved forward with planning because we need to know how the prioritization process works out. So that is the point that we are at this moment. And once an RFP is written, like everything else, as Dawn stated, for caliber and whatnot, things do not happen overnight. Even demolition, although it sounds easy, it is not easy because there are many systems and things that run into this building that interconnect to the other buildings. So all of it will take time once it moves forward. So even once it is approved, we do have planning time to be able to get to some of these questions. Although at this point in time, quite a few of them have some hypotheticals associated with them, which we're not able to address at this time.
Excuse me, Ellen.
Yes.
I know you mentioned that there's no RFQ that's been issued for the architect for the new building. Okay, but it was just a month or two ago that we were hearing a report to the CBOC and or the board that an RFQ would be issued for the demolition, because that's the critical need part is not the rebuild, but the demolition.
Correct.
And it made it sound like right after the beginning of the year, which is now, is when the RFQ would be go out for the demolition. Is that put on hold?
At one point in time, we were hoping that the prioritization process was going to occur quicker. It did not. So the plan was we would know what the prioritization list was sometime near the beginning of the year. So therefore we could issue the RFP, because that is a process in its own, right? That's a couple months by itself. So we would be ready for when the prioritization happened, that we would have a defined scope and it would all work out great. Unfortunately, that's not exactly how it happened. And the prioritization process has taken a little longer. We also are, adjusting to the new board. We were also hoping that our facilities committee, you guys have a couple items waiting in the queue of the facilities committee. Well, so does staff. And so the facilities committee is this Friday. One of the many agenda items will be discussing the completion of the prioritization process. Once we complete the prioritization process, we are planning on addressing the critical needs project for Kennedy.
Okay. Can you take a look at the list of questions that we've provided you and kind of address those one by one?
Many of them I'm not able to answer because there is no answer for them right now. I have answered what was included in the critical needs process. As for the RFP, RFQ, it has not been issued. It will be issued once the prioritization process is complete. As far as when the students return, that it has no implication on whether this project moves forward or how it moves forward. We will identify and have the temporary campus ready when it needs to be. We won't move forward with demolition until it is.
Sorry, that means after Caliber is moved out?
That means until we are able to accommodate the students.
I'm sorry,
If
that's.
there is an alternative way to accommodate the students, we might pursue, I can't state, but we will never demolish a building and not have a place to put the students that we demolish. We will come up with a plan, one way or another.
Okay.
But Caliber is outside of our control, right? We are not the board of Caliber. We don't report to Caliber. That this is an entity onto itself, right? And so we only have minimal controls through the Prop 39 process of how charters use our facilities. We are also not the state that issues the bonds that pays for the Caliber project. So all of these things are not within our control. What is within our control is that we will not demolish a building until we have identified and sent through at least the facilities committee, if not the board, where those students would go afterwards.
Okay, but if, I mean, granted, we don't have control over Caliber, but we do have a control over the facility that we provide for Caliber until their new facility is ready to be housed. And at this time, they're on the temporary campus at Kennedy High. And
They are there, yes. And there is a Prop 39 process, but it has very specific timelines associated with it. So it's not an open-ended, whenever we feel like it, we can control that. There are specific timelines associated with granting charters use of our facilities. And we have to operate within those timelines.
Okay.
But we will not demolish a building without having a place for students to go.
Okay. And what stage is the Caliber Beatty construction project? Can you know
They
that?
have DSA approved plans.
All right, but they do not have the state bond funding yet, correct?
No, and it is typically issued, an issuance of the state bond is typically created in the March, April time period. And they are theoretically on the list of people who would get funded with that bond measure, although the size of that bond, because it hasn't, or that bond issuance has not been released because it doesn't. So it's all operating on what typically happens.
Do you know what Caliber Beta's time frame is once they get the funding as far as breaking ground, building, and relocating? Have they said anything about that?
Any rebuild modernization project typically takes between 12 and 15 months.
Okay.
They do have a contractor on board.
I know that they were doing work out there and then they stopped. Don't know why.
They do not have funding.
Funny how that works. Works at my house like that too. Okay. Now, maybe we can address what about Stige? Because keep in mind the temporary campus was originally built to house Stige, and then we put Coronado there instead because Stige was put on the back burner. But if you're going to move the Kennedy High School students there, that means, correct me if I'm mistaken, building a temporary campus at Stige?
Well, see, this is why we are interconnecting this idea of needing to complete the prioritization process before we can make a determination of what's exactly going to happen when with the Caliber campus.
Okay. That seems kind of open-ended.
There are 19 priority sites. We do not know at this moment in time which of those priority sites will be rebuilt in the immediate future versus later. That has not been determined. So it's very difficult for me to answer the question of when something will happen when we do not have a prioritization complete.
Okay. I mean, I've been told by board members that they don't have to follow the facilities master plan. They can do whatever they want. And hopefully that they'll actually follow the facilities master plan, because that from 2015, when we just started the process, you know this, that was kind of the Bible for what schools get built, get modernization, to help take the politics out of it, because we had a lot of that in the past, and it seems like it may be coming back. Okay.
The facilities master plan is essential to be able to plan these things. Part of the reason why we don't have as many answers as you'd like us to have right now is because the facilities master plan is under an update. If once we have a facilities master plan in place, it's much easier to do the planning, to be able to figure out some of these logistics of temporary facilities, no timelines, be able to get architects on board with scopes defined. All of those things become so much easier with the facility master plan. So I totally agree that I am very excited to get it done, and I'm very excited to move forward with the projects. And we are ready for whatever projects move forward. It's just we just don't know yet.
Do you have a projected cost for the demolition?
Those are the kind of details that come once you have estimators and things on board. We do have a budget, and we know that we need to stay within the budget.
And what, can you share that budget with the public here?
Well, it's whatever is in the, I'm sure Melissa has all the magic numbers for me.
I think that what was
I
authorized.
have my facility master plan handy, as always.
What was in that facilities master plan is not the same number that was authorized on July 29th.
Okay.
Because it was 5 years later.
Right.
So I believe that it was, so it's 12.2.
So it's 12.2 million
Yes,
for the demolition.
yes.
Well,
that's
the demolition, but it also includes,
project budget.
right. As I stated before, you know, it sounds really easy to tear down a building. And in talking of generalities of tearing down buildings, the thing is that these buildings are interconnected. They're interconnected with low voltage systems, electrical systems, depending on the HVAC system, they're interconnected if they have boilers. So these different parts and pieces, you can't just knock one of them down and expect that all of the rest of them to just keep going, right? And so sometimes when you demolish a building, you have to do additional work, mostly underground, which nobody loves or appreciates or sees, but it does happen, right? And so those are components of demolition that are not shown. Also, we would be potentially doing some improvements or rearranging of either the 500 building or the temporary campus.
Okay. When the new campus is built, I mean, considering the very close proximity of the construction site of the new buildings to the science building and the library building, how do you mitigate the safety, the noise, the dust, so that the construction can continue and the schooling can continue at the same time?
Timing is everything.
Okay, well, you're not going to work at nights and weekends while the school is going on, and you're not going to do it all during the summer. Because as you pointed out, that's going to take 12 to 15 months minimum.
Well, but the big noisy, dusty portion of it doesn't need to take that long. So it's a matter of phasing the project to make sure that the most disruptive components of it are scheduled for time that would not disrupt student learning.
Okay. All right. Didn't get quite as many answers as I was hoping for. I understand why, but again, the information we were receiving before was piecemeal. And now the facilities master plan and the prioritization is being brought up as a reason why decisions can't be made. That wasn't the case just a month or two ago. So I appreciate the information that we have received. Do we have anything from the rest of the CBOC or the public? Any kind of questions or comments? Well, one thing that I did want to ask, because this came up with both the rebuild of Wilson / Obama and with Lake. is when trying to decide what's going to be done there. I know you like to talk to staff, you like to talk to the kids, maybe some of the parents in that community, but are you going to expand that discussion to areas outside of there, seeing as how those of us that don't live in that community, that don't attend that school, don't work at that school, we get to pay for that for the rest of our lives. Are you going to be opening up meetings for the general public to weigh in on this? Or is it going to be like the other schools, or where you've got a trustee that says she didn't give a damn about what the rest of the district felt? Is it going to be open, or is it going to be a closed process?
Well, there's probably not going to be a whole lot of input on a demolition project, but we always report to the facilities committee, which is an open committee. We report to the CBOC, which is an open committee. We report to the board, which is an open committee. Most of the time when we're not in a pandemic, we have community meetings that are open to whoever walks in the door. So, I mean, our approach always is to hit at least a couple public committees. It really is tailored though to what the scope and scale of the project is and where we are in the process of doing this, of the design project, right? Because design, I mean, we're not done with Lake. We've not even started Lake. Lake is like done just this tiny portion of the overall process. So we still have the whole design build section where there's possibilities for both school community and broader community to have input. And so we try to keep the communication lines open for every project.
Okay, my concern on the communication is that the general public doesn't even know that we have a facilities committee, let alone that they meet in the middle of the workday, where they would public might have to take off work to attend the meeting. So they don't know anything about this. They don't know that there's how to find the agenda for it, because they don't even know the committee exists, because word is not put out there to the general public. And when you have those, whether it's a Zoom meeting or a public meeting, the public doesn't know about it if the only way the communication is made is to send emails and texts to the parents of the students attending there or the staff. As I mean, I live just a couple of blocks away from the new Obama school. And not only did I never receive a single notification about any meetings on there, I never received any of the newsletters, even though I signed up numerous times. And so, I mean, it was a very small, isolated group of people that were involved in the process. And I think that the district could do a better job of communicating to the public at all the way up to Hercules and to Kensington, that we're building we're going to tear down a school, we're going to build a new school. What do you think about it? Because we're not talking about a small amount of money. This is a large amount of money. The high school is not an elementary school, and even elementary schools costing $65 or $70 million a piece now. I mean, that price is more than doubled what it was just 10 years ago. But I just believe that the public needs to be made aware. If they choose not to attend the meetings, that's one thing, but they can't attend any meeting that they don't even know exists. As I said, I found out about so many of these meetings about Lake only when they were reported after the fact to the board meetings. And I said, we're talking about bond money here, and that's how the CBOC is involved. You know, we're supposed to be representing the people, the taxpayers that are paying for these bonds. Again, many of us, I'm an old guy. I said, that Measure R, I said, I'll be long dead before that's paid off. So I want to know how my tax dollars are being spent. Okay. Once again, anything from anybody else? I've kind of dominated this. Nothing? Okay. Let me pull up my agenda here. Go on to page 10. Item R, requests, advice, and comments. Anton had a number of issues, so I'm going to go ahead and turn these directly over to Anton to frame and bring up.
The first issue, report 1, we've dealt with, so I would propose we move forward to the second item unless somebody else has an issue.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'll then discuss the K-12 school facilities. I would, there was an item that came out in Friday superintendent's memo to the board on this matter, which provides that they're proposing that Christy White do these audits. I would like to request that the item in the Friday, February 5th, 2021 Superintendent Friday memo in regards to this matter be included in our minutes because it's exactly on point for the information I requested. Can we do that?
I'm sure that Mr. Anderson can do that.
Secondly, I would like to request that these audit reports, if the CBOC could have entrance and exit conferences on these audit reports, because these audit reports are specifically on bond-funded measures. I think that would really be important. This is a whole new process that the state is starting on new projects. So I would like to make that request.
Okay. Forgive me on this, Anton. I'm looking at the very first question you've got there. Maybe staff could weigh in. When will Perry's, Gompers, and Coronado be ready for audit?
Yeah, and I think, as I said, the Friday memo, let me close the door here. My dog thinks it's dinner time.
I agree.
The Friday memo, which came out last Friday, says that these audit reports are due to the state by October 20, 2021. So the answer to that question was in the Friday Superintendent's Friday memo last Friday.
Okay. Now, these are going to be independent audits. I mean, separate. They're not going to be grouped together. As you got 3 schools listed here.
Well, again, the Friday memo says that they're proposing to contract with Christy White to do these 3 audits. And they're suggesting that would be on the facilities committee meeting for discussion.
Okay, when you sent this to me, you said Perry's, Gompers, and Coronado. Did you mean Greenwood? They're not auditing Gompers. Gompers ceased to exist quite a few years ago, didn't it?
So maybe a quick point of clarification. So when we submitted the grant application to the state, the name was Gompers. And so when you look at the information, it refers to Gompers because of the time. And so I think this committee knows we have aggressively applied for many state facility audits over the years, and historically they were done by OPSC. So we would be assigned an OPSC auditor. They would request documents. We would work through the process. Through the new grant agreement, it does go to third party. And so there are a series of projects that will trigger this third party audit. And the first 3 are the 3 that are highlighted here on page 190, and they're identified based on their application, and that's why it says Gompers. And so essentially the audit is due to the state controller's office a year after 100% filing is made. And so we actually have 4 grant agreements that are going to be due. There's an additional one which isn't listed here on this list, and that's Helms, which will be due in December of 2021. And so Christy White was asked to provide a proposal to provide these services for the 4 different applications. And so this is our first time doing the third party, but I do understand that they will be 4 separate reports. It'll be a separate report for each grant application.
Thank you. Can you please tell us what does OPSC stand for?
The Office of Public School Construction. I apologize. And it's the school facility program that we've applied to for modernization, new construction, even the career technical education facility grants. So they're the agency that we work with to apply.
Okay, Anton, continue.
Well, I didn't hear a response from the staff whether we can look at the have entrance and exit conference on these audits. I think that this is really important.
So I'm going to pass the question to our lead auditor and work to get that response.
Okay. We'll follow up with your the lead auditor. You're talking about Margarita or?
Yeah, Miss Romo.
Okay. That work for you, Anton?
Yes.
Okay. Continue on, please.
Well, that's all I has on that item. Should I move to the next item?
Wait, does anybody have any questions or comments on item R2? Okay. Continue on, sir.
RT relates to the bond waiver where the tax rate was waived by the State Board of Education January 13th. My concern here is that we got a presentation of this in September. Based on that presentation where the CBOC took no action, the district represented to the State Board of Education, the district that the CBOC had no objection. I think that is not acceptable to me, that if we get a presentation and then they represent, we have no objection. It was not on for action. We had no action in the minutes. So I'm very unhappy with that representation. And I think it's inappropriate, in my view, for the district to have made that representation.
Would anybody on the CBOC object if I sent a letter to the superintendent and Dr. Wold, just letting him know that we were not happy with this and we'd prefer that it not happen again?
I think that's a good idea. That's the best way to resolve this, or at least get it out there.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to petition the state to revoke the waiver, but we do want to make sure it doesn't happen again. And I don't think that this was any attempt by staff to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. It was a mistake, but it spoke for us when we didn't speak. So,
Don,
yes.
I
Go ahead.
believe that they were assuming, since nobody complained when it was given, that there was acceptance, which isn't necessarily, which is, you know,
Not a good assumption to make.
Yeah.
Sally, your hand is up.
Yeah, I want to, I agree that we're not going to be able to get the waiver changed, but we could correct the indication, or can we correct the indication about the CBOC's position on it? Is it even possible to? I mean, can you to request that don't do it again? Don't do what again? Don't request a waiver, or don't?
No, don't speak for us without
incorrectly report what the CBOC does, but can you get it corrected?
You're talking about approaching the State Board of Education?
No. Okay, so it went into the report that went to the state. Is that correct?
That's correct. And they acted on that report.
No way to correct it.
Yeah. Okay, Anton.
Well, I like John's idea, but I would suggest sending the letter, but I would suggest that letter go to the school board and the state school board, both. So that the State Board of Education has in their file the fact that we did not, was not an action of this committee. I mean, we understand they're not going to change it, but I think the school board and the State Board of Education need to know that. And I think I don't think it was an accident. I think it was purposeful.
Well, that's a discussion for another date and time, but I have no problem with CCing the State Board of Education on this.
I'd agree, Don. I just say, yeah, right. It goes to our school board, but just CC the state and say, oh, by the way, that was a misstatement. I guess I wouldn't be any more inflammatory than that.
No. Okay, Anton, go ahead and move on to your next item, please.
I think that's it.
That's it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're right.
But I'd be happy to go on. I've got 10 more items.
Okay, no, Lorraine, do you want to let Anton go on, or do you want to report on your annual report?
Well, as long as you'll have room for my report.
Nope, we don't. So it's either do it now or forever hold your peace.
That sounds good to me. Would you put it up on the screen, please? Or can you put it on the screen?
And that's staff, not me.
All right. Great. Make it as big as you can, please.
Is that what I emailed you about?
Okay. Essentially, every year what we do is we have an annual report. It's a requirement of Proposition 39. And what we have done in the past is the committees have just assigned members different parts of the report to do. And that's what you have here. You have your name will be next to a section of the report. We have 3 members that are still waiting to be appointed, Jason, Tom, and Consuelo. John and I were aware of Tom and Jason. We weren't aware of Consuelo. So we had thought about where we want to put them. I didn't want to put their names in this report because this is a public report. But maybe you can help us before you get appointed. And as soon as you get appointed, we can put your name officially and on it. If you have any areas you would like to work in, please let us know. We will be sending out version 1, which is the version that people can edit this week. And there'll be a cover letter. And if you are assigned an area that you're not familiar with, we will try to tell you what you have to do in that section. As far as Jason and Consuelo and Tom, we will send you letters of areas where we would like you to work in, or if you have a preference, let us know. And so you can at least read the report to see that section. The way we have it set up, version 1 is the editing version. That you'll see a completion date needed on that of April 23rd. That gives you plenty of time. The reason it was April 23rd was because we were figuring March 31st, the joint meeting, that's when we'll get the performance audit. We'll have to look at the performance audit, put it together, etc. And also as soon as you get done your section, let us know, because we have to do the executive summary after the chapters are written, because we take that information in the executive summary from the chapters. So that gives us plenty of time. And then we will present it. We will hope to send it out the week before the next May meeting, which is on the 17th. So you can get a chance to look at it. On the 17th, we'll give you version 2, which you can only comment on. You can't edit. And your comments will have to come by email. This will be in the cover letter. The comments have to come by email because of the Brown Act. We will talk to the people about the comments. They are due in on the 28th. It's on this chart. And then we will present the report at the June 14th meeting for approval. Any questions on this?
Lorraine, in your presentation, you were speaking as if Consuelo and Tom Panis were both still here and listening, but they're gone.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll send them a letter.
Yes, I suspect it's because the academic committee started their meeting at 4 p.m. So I mean, typical of the district schedules multiple meetings at the same time so that people have to decide which one they can attend and which one they have to blow off.
Right. Right. Well,
So,
we'll send the cover letter and we'll send it to them too and explain the situation.
That's just a little side question with regard to these applications. Have the individuals been interviewed by the committee, the facilities committee?
Nobody has. I even checked with a few people. They say they have not received any notification to attend the meeting on Friday.
Yeah, so that's a way, that's a ways off because when I went through it and Aisha isn't here, but we had a Zoom or conference call with a couple of the members of the committee. So I'm not optimistic these folks are going to be formally on board and before we start working on this report, Lorraine.
Well, what I'm hoping is they can informally work on it.
So let's assume that we are, and I'm sure that the letter that's going to come out, cover letter that's going to come out, will be clear in the expectation. But what, just informally, what are we to do with each of these sections? Read them and decipher them into our own words for the public, or?
Well, Jason, once you get your assignment, we were thinking that you would be interested in chapter 6, which talks all about construction. What's being in construction. Also, we get pictures from the different meetings to put in the report, and it's construction pictures. Now, last year I picked a bunch out, and John, who is an engineer, verified it. So you would probably be picking out the pictures that would represent the critical elements, which I'll tell you how to find out. And then you would put your suggestions to John, and then the two of you would decide what pictures go in. So why don't you read over chapter 6? The annual report, the last annual report is on the website. You go to the website and then you just go into the annual report and you'll see the one for AR 19 is there. So you can pull up the report and look at the thing, or you'll get it in the mail this week.
And the other thing, Jason, is that what'll be this last year's report, focused on the projects that were being worked on in that period. So you'll see a big thing on Pinole Valley there. Well, it will not. I think this year the bigger emphasis will probably be on Michelle Obama, because that's completed now.
Yeah. And last year, Sally did a thing where she had, if anybody had any questions, and the new people, especially working on the report, she brought them into a Zoom meeting individually, and then, we can help you out that way. But if you check over chapter 6, that would be your best bet right now.
Okay.
And a lot of the stuff is repeated. A lot of it is history and all.
Lorraine.
Sally?
Okay. When you send out your email to everybody about this, I'd emphasize that, especially for new people, involvement in the annual report is one of the best training grounds that we have for what we do, because you are going back through the prior report and you're actually updating it and so forth. And so it's very instructive in that way. Once we started involving everybody on the CBOC in the annual report writing, this really helped in the training ground. And the other thing to say is that, for example, I see that you've got my name in a number of different places that might be appropriate for somebody new coming in. And I would be perfectly happy to work with the new person, whoever that is, Jason or or, you know, or Maisha. Maisha's not brand new, but she wasn't able to be too involved in the last one, and you know, or any number of the other new people that might be assigned. And so they should just know that they have help. You know, we're there to help, and this helps pass along, you know, the baton, if you will. As people come into the CBOC, they get involved in the annual report. Older group members like myself help them, and then they keep going.
Before Anton weighs in, I just emailed the annual report to everybody. So you don't have to go to the website.
They can read it, but we'll have to give them linking access so they can edit it.
Well, you just told Jason to read chapter 6.
Yeah, I think he's talking about the 2019 report, Lorraine.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yes. Okay. Anton, you had your hand up, or to take it down?
I'm okay. Thank you.
All right, Lorraine, you have anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. Now we go to the really important items. We got the calendar, item T. Okay. Oh my goodness, look at that. Proposed joint meeting in bright yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just, I can see how it kind of blended right in. All right. And do we have any future agenda topics that anybody would like me to put on the next agendas or future agendas?
Yeah, Don?
Go ahead.
Lorraine here. I mentioned it before, since we have so many new people now, how about training on the Brown Act? I've never gotten any training on the Brown Act. That pertains to the CBOC, because there's a lot in the Brown Act that has nothing to do with the CB, would not be pertaining to it.
We will see what we can come up with.
Yeah.
Anything else? Going? All right. Our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, March 8th. Put it down on your calendar. And if there's nothing else, at 4:42 p.m., we are adjourned.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for participating. And in spite of all the technical issues, we actually got a good meeting going.
Okay.
We did good. All right.
Thank you, Don and all.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. Be safe.
Yep.
Thank you to all the staff that made this happen.
Yeah. Thank
Yes.
you.